Joan McEachern never thought of herself as a pioneer during her soccer career. It was only after she hung up her boots that she started to see how the struggles in the early days of women's soccer have helped pave the way for future generations. McEachern grew up on a farm near Sinnott and went to high school in Lanigan. She was active in many sports, but said in the late 1970s, soccer wasn't really on her radar.
My brothers and my cousins, we played this hybrid game that we called farmer soccer. And it was sort of a mix between soccer and rugby. And if you picked up the ball and ran, people would tackle you. And if you dribbled the ball, they would just push you off. So that's where I learned to dribble, because it was much less painful being pushed off the ball than tackled.
Her high school formed a team, and McEachern played her first organized soccer game in grade 11. Lanigan Central High School won a provincial title, and while studying at the University of Saskatchewan, McEachern played on a women's team that won a men's indoor league in Saskatoon. The U of S formed an unaffiliated club team in her third year before launching a varsity team a year later. Though there was no league to play in yet, the Huskies did compete at the first Canada West tournament in 1984, where McEachern was named the most valuable player. McEachern also represented Saskatchewan at the 1983 Western Canada Summer Games. Those experiences grew her confidence and drew attention to her talent. She was recruited to join the Edmonton Angels, winners of the first 5 Jubilee Trophy Women's National Club Championships. McEachern would win the Jubilee Trophy with the Angels in 1985, 86, and 1988. She was the tournament MVP in 1985. She won the Jubilee Trophy again in 1994 with the Coquitlam Strikers from British Columbia.
One thing that I was known for at the club level was being a clutch player. I scored the winning goal at Nationals 3 or 4 times. I only won 4 national championships. So, and my teammate, I had teammates with the Angels. You know, when we needed a goal, come up to me and grab me by both arms and say, "Score!"
There was no professional women's soccer at the time, but the Angels were about as close as you could get in the way they were run and how they trained.
And honestly, it was a great decision, because the Angels won nationals for a reason. They trained like at the time like a club team. It was a great organization and a great environment to be in, to develop as a soccer player.
She also represented Alberta on their provincial all-star team that finished 3rd at Nationals in 1986 and 2nd in 1987. Those tournaments went a long way to help select the first women's national team. An injury limited McEachern in 1986, and she wasn't selected when the Canadian women's national team debuted later that year. She made her international debut in 1987 in Canada's 3rd match. The program was in its infancy, but Canada was one of 12 teams invited by FIFA to China in 1988 for a test event to gauge the viability of holding a Women's World Cup. Canada opened the tournament against the hosts in front of 63,000 fans in the venue that would host the first Women's World Cup final in 1991.
The test tournament in China was really one of the highlights of my career. You were representing Canada, but you were representing women's football on the global stage. It was like a little bit of added pressure, but it was also such an amazing opportunity. It was the opening match. We're playing the host, and you know, at most we'd maybe played in front of 100 people, maybe. And the stands were full, and as I said, nobody was cheering for us.
The success of the tournament led to the first Women's World Cup, but Canada would not be there. The United States earned the region's only World Cup berth and went on to win the tournament. By 1995, there were 2 regional qualifying spots available, and Canada comfortably advanced to the World Cup in Sweden. McEachern made the Canadian team, which failed to advance from the group stage. McEachern spent 9 years on the national team, and at the time of her retirement in 1995 had 31 appearances, which placed her 6th on the all-time list. McEachern said in those early days, they were too busy playing to stop and think about their role as pioneers who were leaving a legacy. Now, looking at the success the Canadian team has enjoyed, she says it's gratifying to have been involved from the very beginning.
We didn't start to think about that until, years after we'd retired. I remember one moment when it really hit me. The Olympic qualifying was held in Vancouver for 2012, so it was January of 2012. A bunch of us made arrangements, not just from my era, but some more recent national team players who had just retired. We had a picture taken with a Canadian flag, and people were walking by kind of looking at us, and they had no idea who we were. Anyways, we went into the stands, and BC Place was full. It was loud, and we all kind of looked at each other and said, we helped build this.
Installed in the Saskatchewan Sports Hall of Fame on September 23rd, 2023, Joan McEachern.